Okay, we got another one. I've been wanting to do this for a couple of days. Just haven't had the time. But we're going to do it now. 2 finding unhoused men fatally shot by cops. What unhoused means like homeless people. San Francisco cops shot 2 unhoused men fighting on the street. Here we go. Check it out.
After a week of silence, the San Francisco PD finally released the body cam footage of a fatal officer-involved shooting of 2 men. Now, this occurred on May 19th. And so what you're about to see is definitely something that is disturbing.
We can sort that out. We have to drop the knife first.
Yeah, 105. Code 3 to impose an Owens, please.
Listen to me. We cannot solve this. I told me that he attacked you, and I believe you. Drop the knife. Get him.
Wow.
Now, those 2 men there, they've been identified as 57-year-old Michael Mefiahan and 49-year-old Rafael Mendoza. Now, the San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott, whose picture is here, and other officials, they spoke during a virtual town hall on Friday when presenting this body cam footage. Now, where the San Fran Police Department makes it a policy to hold a town hall 10 days after a shooting, Chief Scott faced criticism for initially withholding this information. And the 4 officers involved, however, their information has been put on the streets. They've been identified as Trent Collins, Joshua Deakes, Aiden O'Driscoll, and Danielle Rosea. Now, Scott stated that it was premature to comment on whether those officers used an appropriate amount of force. But we do definitely have a little bit more context, and we can hopefully make that decision for ourselves. So, per CBS San Francisco and the Associated Press, police were dispatched to a San Francisco street under a highway overpass around 8 p.m. after a 911 caller reported that a man who was possibly homeless was violently beating someone underneath a tarp. The caller said the man appeared to have 2 large sticks or rods the size of baseball bats. When officers arrived, the 2 men were on the ground struggling, and officers realized that there were knives involved. And you can see that here from the screenshots. Mefiahan refused to drop his knife, per the officers, prompting an officer to fire foam bullets. Another even used pepper spray. And later on, they ended up deploying sandbags at these unhoused individuals. Now, several other officers repeatedly shouted commands as the officers pointed their weapons at the 2 men. And after a 9-minute struggle, Mefiahan began stabbing Mendoza, prompting the 4 other officers to fire their guns. 3 fired handguns and 1 fired a rifle. Now, both men ultimately died of gunshot wounds. The public defender's office also happened to criticize the officers for not recognizing Mendoza's lack of English-speaking skills until late in the incident. So these officers continued to provide commands in English, yet this individual was not complying or did not understand them clearly. Now, earlier this week, the state attorney general's office announced it would investigate the shooting under a new state law that requires the California Department of Justice to investigate police shootings that result in the death of an unarmed civilian. And here's that person in charge. That's Attorney General Rob Bonta. Now, his office said in a statement Monday that the department was treating the shooting as eligible for investigation because of the uncertainty of what happened. And there definitely appears to be some uncertainty, as in if one of the men was the victim here and was trying to protect himself in some way, why would he end up being dead too? Unless the police weren't looking necessarily to protect him. What do you think, Jackson?
Well, the first issue that these 2 men had, and the whole reason that this went down, is because they're homeless and society doesn't care about them. So again, the consideration wasn't there for the fact that they could have tased the men, or they could have just physically subdued them. There was a whole team of police officers there, all of them grown men. You know, at the end of the day, they just have a couple knives. Everyone else has weapons, so they could have tactfully removed those 2 men from each other without much problem. I mean, even untrained, get 3-4 guys my size, we could have got them off of each other, and we're not even trained or technically trained. But of course, the police aren't trained well either. So, again, this was completely avoidable. And the fact that we saw them shoot so many shots, it's like, you know, that this just goes to show, again, predetermined actions. Not necessarily to say that I'm going to kill this person when I get on the scene, but you don't really care if you do. So,
yeah, it definitely seems that there was not really enough thought going into this process of, do we really need to, they used sandbags, they used tasers. They seem to use a lot of artillery, but the question is, was it necessary, especially when you get to the point of a firearm being used, where they all unloaded their firearms on these two men, one of which, it's questionable whether he spoke English, and that should have been apparent to the officers after a certain amount of time. It just makes us think that the officers didn't necessarily care about the lives of these individuals, one in particular who they were called to protect.
Yep. Jesus. Talk about getting executed by the thin blue lines, huh? That's what you call it. Happy fuck the cop said. Blue lines, murder! With that said, I'm out here, Mike Joe. Peace out.